God bless you, dear. Have a wonderful week. You too, sister. Thank you. And a blessed day to you, sir.
The last person anyone expected to disappear was Loretta Brooks. At 60 years old, she wasn't the kind of woman who attracted headlines. She wasn't wealthy enough to be famous. She wasn't reckless enough to concern her family. She lived in the same Ohio neighborhood for nearly 3 decades, watered the same flowers every morning, and spent every Sunday in the same church pew. Then one Tuesday morning, her front door stood open. Her coffee sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Her phone remained charging beside her bed. And the woman who never missed a call from her children was simply gone. Neighbors searched the area. Family members panicked. Police were notified. But what made the situation truly unsettling wasn't the disappearance itself. It was what investigators found inside her home. Photographs. Dozens of them. Pictures of Loretta smiling beside a man her children had never met. A man nobody seemed to know. A man who, according to some records, shouldn't have been anywhere near Ohio in the first place. And yet there he was. Holding her hand. Laughing beside her. Standing closer to her than anyone had seen since her husband died 15 years earlier. For weeks, rumors moved through the community. Had Loretta run away? Had she been manipulated? Was she hiding something from her family? Or had something happened to her after she placed her trust in the wrong person? What nobody realized at the time was that the answers stretched back decades. Because this wasn't simply a story about a missing grandmother. It was a story about loneliness. Second chances. Family secrets. And a decision that would divide everyone who thought they knew her. Stay with me. Because before this story ends, everything you think happened to Loretta Brooks will change. The official timeline seemed simple. 3 months before her disappearance, Loretta Brooks met a man named Malik Jefferson. 6 weeks later, they were inseparable. 3 weeks after that, she quietly updated her will. Then she vanished. To her daughter Tamara, the sequence felt impossible. Her mother had spent years insisting she was finished with romance. Finished with dating. Finished with heartbreak. After losing her husband, she'd built a life centered around children, grandchildren, church activities, and community work. So how had a stranger entered her life and altered everything so quickly? The more Tamara searched for answers, the more questions appeared. Who exactly was Malik Jefferson? Why did he seem reluctant to discuss parts of his past? Why had Loretta become increasingly private after meeting him? And perhaps most troubling of all, why did several people claim they'd seen the couple arguing just days before Loretta disappeared? Before we go further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We always love hearing from you. And if you're new here, consider subscribing so you never miss stories like this. At first glance, investigators saw nothing criminal. There were no signs of violence. No signs of forced entry. No obvious evidence of foul play. But retired Detective Ron Keller noticed something unusual. People don't typically leave behind every essential item if they're planning to start over. Not their phone. Not their medications. Not family photographs. Yet Loretta had left all of them behind. Meanwhile, Malik Jefferson seemed genuinely worried. He joined searches. Answered questions. Pleaded publicly for information. Still, suspicion followed him everywhere. Would you have trusted someone who appeared in your mother's life only weeks before she changed her will? Most people in town wouldn't. And that suspicion would only grow stronger once hidden details about both Loretta and Malik began to emerge. Because the woman everyone believed they knew had been keeping secrets for years. And Malik wasn't the only person hiding something. To understand what happened, you have to understand who Loretta Brooks was before Malik Jefferson entered her life. For most of her adult years, Loretta was known for sacrifice. She married young. Raised 2 children. Worked part-time jobs whenever money became tight. And quietly placed everyone else's needs ahead of her own. Her husband, Stephen Brooks, had been a truck driver whose long absences often left Loretta carrying the household alone. Friends described their marriage as stable but practical. Not particularly romantic. Not particularly passionate. Just 2 people navigating life together. When Stephen died unexpectedly from a heart condition 15 years earlier, something inside Loretta changed. She continued functioning. She attended family gatherings. She smiled when expected. But people close to her noticed she gradually became smaller. Not physically. Emotionally. The adventurous woman who once talked about road trips and beach vacations slowly disappeared. Her world narrowed. Years passed. Grandchildren arrived. Retirement came. And while everyone assumed Loretta was content, loneliness settled into corners of her life nobody else could see. Evenings became the hardest. The house was quiet. The television filled empty rooms. Holiday celebrations ended with everyone returning home while she remained behind. Many viewers may understand that feeling. The strange loneliness that can exist even when surrounded by people who love you. But there was another chapter of Loretta's life almost nobody knew about. Long before she met Stephen. Long before she became a mother. There had been someone else. A relationship she'd never discussed with her children. A relationship connected to a decision she regretted for more than 40 years. The memory resurfaced unexpectedly during her 60th birthday. A family photo album triggered old emotions she thought had disappeared. Friends noticed changes afterward. She became reflective. More thoughtful. Sometimes staring out windows for long periods. As if revisiting roads not taken. At the time, nobody paid much attention. After all, reaching 60 causes many people to reflect on their lives. What they gained. What they lost. What might have been. But those reflections were quietly preparing Loretta for a meeting that would alter everything. And that meeting happened on an ordinary spring afternoon. The kind of afternoon nobody remembers until it changes their life forever. Loretta had attended a local community fundraiser. Nothing remarkable. A modest gathering supporting neighborhood improvement projects. She almost didn't go. In fact, she'd considered staying home. But a last-minute decision placed her in the same room as Malik Jefferson. The first conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. Neither of them realized its significance. Malik was recently retired. Recently relocated. Soft-spoken but observant. Unlike many people Loretta encountered, he seemed genuinely interested in listening rather than speaking. And after years of feeling invisible, being heard felt surprisingly powerful. What neither of them revealed during that first conversation would become important later. Very important. Because both carried pieces of history they weren't yet ready to share. And hidden inside those histories was the reason this story would eventually captivate an entire community. What happened next seemed innocent enough. A coffee meeting. Then another. Then long phone conversations. Then weekend walks. But at this point, nobody realized the most surprising revelation was still ahead. Because Malik Jefferson wasn't entering Loretta's life by accident. And the truth behind their connection stretched much further back than anyone could imagine. The relationship moved faster than anyone expected. Within 2 months, Loretta Brooks looked different. Not younger. Not transformed. But alive in a way her family hadn't seen in years. The woman who once declined invitations now accepted them. She started taking weekend drives. She bought new clothes. She laughed more often. And strangely, that happiness made some people uncomfortable. Her daughter Tamara told friends she wasn't against her mother dating. What worried her was the speed. Everything seemed rushed. At first, she tried approaching the situation gently. Questions during family dinners. Casual conversations. Small attempts to understand who Malik Jefferson really was. But every time she asked, Loretta became unusually defensive. For decades, Loretta had shared nearly everything with her children. Now she guarded certain details carefully. That change alone raised concerns. Meanwhile, Darren Brooks viewed the situation through an entirely different lens. Darren had accumulated debt over the years. Failed business ventures. Credit problems. Loans he struggled to repay. He never openly discussed inheritance, but privately he assumed the family home would eventually pass to him and his sister. When he learned that Loretta had recently met with an attorney, anxiety began replacing curiosity. Why update legal documents now? Why after meeting Malik? And why refuse to explain the changes? What would you have thought in Darren's position? Would concern for your parent outweigh worries about your family's future? Or would those fears become impossible to separate? The tension inside the Brooks family continued building quietly. Then another figure entered the picture. Harold Green. The neighbor who had lived across the street for nearly 20 years. Harold had been there after Stephen died. He mowed Loretta's lawn. Checked on her during winter storms. Fixed small problems around the house. He never crossed obvious boundaries. Never openly pursued her. But many neighbors suspected he hoped their friendship would eventually become something more. When Malik appeared, Harold's disappointment became difficult to hide. He never directly criticized him. Instead, he asked questions. Lots of questions. Questions that gradually planted doubt in other people's minds. Where exactly had Malik lived before moving to Ohio? Why were there gaps in stories about his earlier years? Why did he avoid discussing his first marriage? Why did no one seem able to verify parts of his background? Soon those questions spread through the community. And once suspicion begins, people often start seeing warning signs everywhere. Some neighbors claimed Malik appeared secretive. Others said he was simply private. Some described him as charming. Others called him calculated. The truth remained unclear. But one thing became obvious. People were beginning to choose sides. And that division would soon have consequences. Stay with me, because the next discovery changed the entire conversation. About 3 months into the relationship, Tamara accidentally found an old photograph while helping her mother organize boxes in the attic. The image appeared ordinary at first. A faded picture from the early 1980s. A younger Loretta standing beside several people at a community event. But one face caught Tamara's attention. A young black man standing several feet away. His image was partially obscured. Still, there was something familiar about him. Hours later, she compared the photograph to a recent picture of Malik. Her stomach tightened. The resemblance was unmistakable. Not identical. Time had changed both of them. But the similarities were there. The discovery raised a troubling possibility. Had Loretta and Malik known each other before? If so, why pretend otherwise? When Tamara confronted her mother, Loretta immediately dismissed the idea. Coincidence, she said. Nothing more. Yet her response felt rehearsed. Too quick. Too controlled. And for the first time, Tamara wondered whether her mother was hiding something much larger than a late-life romance. Days later, another detail emerged. A local attorney confirmed that Loretta had indeed revised her will. The contents remained confidential. But the timing was enough to intensify family concerns. Arguments followed. Some subtle. Some direct. Conversations ended abruptly. Family gatherings became uncomfortable. Loretta insisted she deserved happiness. Her children insisted they simply wanted answers. Neither side felt heard. Neither side trusted the other completely. And while all this unfolded publicly, something far more important was happening behind closed doors. Loretta and Malik were having conversations nobody else knew about. Conversations about the past. Conversations about regret. Conversations about choices made decades earlier. Whatever they discussed left Loretta emotional. Several times friends saw her crying after meeting him. Yet she always described those tears as happy ones. That explanation only deepened the mystery. Because people don't usually cry over happy memories. At least not repeatedly. Then came the argument. The one multiple witnesses later remembered. 3 days before Loretta disappeared, several people saw the couple speaking outside a cafe. The discussion appeared intense. Not violent. Not aggressive. But serious. Witnesses described raised voices. Long pauses. Emotional expressions. At one point, Loretta reportedly walked away. Malik remained standing alone in the parking lot. The sight spread through town quickly. For those already suspicious, it seemed significant. For others, it looked like a normal disagreement. Nobody knew what had been said. And that missing piece would become critically important later. Because whatever happened during that conversation would connect directly to the events that followed. And that wasn't even the worst part. 48 hours later, Loretta received a letter. No return address. No identifying information. Just a single envelope placed inside her mailbox. According to investigators, she opened it immediately. Neighbors later recalled seeing her sitting on her porch afterward. Motionless. Staring into the distance. Something in that letter clearly disturbed her. Yet she never mentioned it to anyone. Not her children. Not her friends. Not even Malik. Or at least that's what everyone believed. At this point, nobody realized the most important clue in the entire story had already arrived. The final weekend began quietly. Too quietly. Saturday morning looked completely ordinary. Loretta visited a farmer's market. Spoke with several vendors. Purchased flowers. Stopped for coffee. Nothing unusual. Nothing alarming. If anything, she appeared calmer than she had in weeks. That evening, she spoke with her granddaughter on the phone. They discussed school. Summer plans. A future family gathering. Nothing in the conversation suggested distress. Nothing suggested goodbye. Then Sunday arrived. And everything changed. Church members remembered seeing her during the morning service. She smiled. Participated normally. Stayed afterward to greet friends. Several people later said she appeared thoughtful but peaceful. As if she'd reached some important decision. Again, nobody recognized its significance at the time. Late that afternoon, Malik attempted to call her. No answer. He left a message. Hours passed. Still nothing. By evening, concern began growing. Loretta was dependable. Predictable. The type of person who returned calls promptly. Malik tried again. And again. No response. The following morning, a neighbor noticed her front door partially open. At first, it didn't seem alarming. Then hours passed. The door remained open. The curtains never moved. The light stayed off. Eventually, someone approached the house. Inside, everything appeared frozen in place. Coffee ingredients sat on the kitchen counter. Reading glasses rested beside an unfinished crossword puzzle. Her purse remained inside. Her phone remained charging. Medication remained untouched. There was no sign of struggle. No overturned furniture. No broken windows. No obvious indication of what happened. Just absence. A deeply unsettling absence. When family members arrived, panic spread quickly. Tamara feared the worst. Darren demanded immediate answers. Harold blamed Malik almost instantly. And Malik himself appeared devastated. Search parties formed. Local authorities organized efforts. Flyers covered telephone poles and storefront windows. Tips flooded in. Most led nowhere. Then investigators made two discoveries. The first was hidden inside a desk drawer. A handwritten note. Not a farewell message. Not an explanation. Simply a sentence written in Loretta's handwriting. I cannot keep carrying this secret. Nothing else. No context. No names. No indication of what secret she meant. The second discovery was even stranger. The mysterious letter she received days earlier was gone. Completely gone. No envelope. No contents. No trace. Someone had removed it. But who? Loretta herself. Or someone else? As authorities searched for answers, speculation exploded. Had she left voluntarily? Had she been threatened? Was she protecting someone? Or had a secret buried for decades finally caught up with her? At this point, the town focused almost entirely on Malik Jefferson. His recent arrival. His relationship with Loretta. The public argument. The revised will. Everything pointed toward him. At least on the surface. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered something nobody expected. Something that shifted attention away from Malik. And toward a chapter of Loretta's life that had remained hidden for more than 40 years. What investigators discovered next would force everyone to reconsider everything they believed about the woman at the center of this mystery. The disappearance of Loretta Brooks quickly became the biggest story the community had seen in years. Every day brought new theories. Every day brought new accusations. And every day seemed to push investigators farther away from the truth. The first major breakthrough came from retired detective Ron Keller. Unlike many people focused solely on Malik Jefferson, Keller became interested in the note found inside Loretta's desk. "I cannot keep carrying this secret." The sentence bothered him. Not because of what it said. Because of what it implied. People running away from danger usually leave messages about fear. People planning to disappear often leave instructions. But guilt? That was different. Guilt pointed backward. Toward something unresolved. Something old. Keller requested access to records connected to Loretta's earlier life. At first, nothing stood out. Marriage records. Employment history. School information. Normal details. Then one document caught his attention. A hospital record from more than 40 years earlier. The file was incomplete. Parts had been sealed. Other sections appeared missing entirely. But one detail remained visible. In 1982, Loretta Brooks, then Loretta Dawson, had spent several days in a maternity ward. The discovery stunned investigators. According to every family record available, Loretta's first child wasn't born until years later. So why was she admitted to a maternity unit? Where was the child? And why had nobody ever mentioned it? Stay with me, because what investigators uncovered next changed everything. When authorities questioned Loretta's longtime friends, an older woman finally shared something she'd kept private for decades. Back in the early 1980s, Loretta had been deeply involved with a young man named Nathan Jefferson. The relationship had been serious. Very serious. But it faced resistance. Not from the couple. From their families. Nathan was black. Loretta was white. In some parts of America, that reality still carried enormous social pressure at the time. According to the witness, Loretta became pregnant. The families intervened. Meetings were held. Decisions were made. And shortly afterward, the relationship ended abruptly. No one knew exactly what happened after that. The story simply disappeared. But one detail immediately captured investigators' attention. Nathan Jefferson. The surname was identical to Malik Jefferson's. Was it coincidence? Or was there a connection everyone had missed? When Keller approached Malik with the information, the reaction surprised everyone. Malik didn't deny it. He didn't hesitate. Instead, tears filled his eyes. Then he revealed the truth. Nathan Jefferson had been his older brother. Suddenly, decades of mystery began connecting together. The old photograph. The emotional conversations. The hidden sadness. The secret neither Loretta nor Malik seemed willing to explain. But the most important revelation was still ahead. Because Malik wasn't the man who had entered Loretta's life by chance. And Loretta wasn't simply revisiting an old romance. The reality was far more emotional than anyone imagined. When Malik finally shared everything he knew, the entire investigation changed direction. 44 years earlier, Loretta and Nathan had fallen in love. When Loretta became pregnant, both families panicked. The pressure became overwhelming. The relationship collapsed under forces neither of them could control. Soon afterward, Loretta gave birth. But the baby never came home with her. The child was placed for adoption through arrangements largely controlled by family members. Loretta spent decades believing she would never see the child again. Nathan spent years searching. Then tragedy struck. Nathan died in a construction accident before finding any answers. For years, the story remained buried. Until Malik began researching family history after retirement. What started as curiosity became a mission. Using records, documents, and DNA databases, he eventually discovered Loretta. The moment he realized who she was, he faced a difficult choice. Should he contact her? Or leave the past alone? Eventually, he reached out. Not as a romantic partner. Not at first. Simply as the brother of a man who once loved her. The meeting that followed changed both their lives. Because during those conversations, Loretta learned something she had dreamed about for more than 4 decades. Her child was alive. Not only alive. Successful. Healthy. And searching for biological relatives. The secret emotional conversation suddenly made sense. The tears made sense. Even the mysterious note began making sense. Loretta wasn't carrying a secret relationship. She was carrying the pain of a child she lost and never stopped thinking about. But one mystery remained. Where was she? And what about the missing letter? The answer arrived 9 days after her disappearance. Authorities received a phone call from South Carolina. The caller identified herself as Loretta Brooks. Alive. Safe. And ready to explain everything. The truth stunned her family. The anonymous letter she'd received days earlier contained information she had been waiting 44 years to hear. Her biological child had finally agreed to meet her. The meeting was arranged privately. The location kept confidential. Overwhelmed by fear, excitement, guilt, and uncertainty, Loretta chose not to tell anyone. Not her children. Not her neighbors. Not even Malik. She worried someone would try to stop her. After years of carrying emotional wounds, she wanted one moment that belonged entirely to her. So she left. Quietly. Without explaining. Without realizing the panic her disappearance would create. The sentence in her desk suddenly took on new meaning. I cannot keep carrying this secret. The secret wasn't criminal. It wasn't financial. It wasn't romantic. It was grief. 4 decades of grief. And once she finally confronted it, everything changed. Yet there was one final revelation. One that nobody expected. During her time away, Loretta met not only the child she had lost. She met grandchildren. A son-in-law. An entire branch of family she never knew existed. And among the people helping organize those reunions was Malik Jefferson. The man everyone suspected. The man many blamed. The man who had actually reunited a broken family. Months later, Loretta returned home. But she didn't return to the same life. For the first time in decades, she stopped apologizing for wanting happiness. Her relationship with Malik continued. Slowly. Openly. Honestly. The truth eventually emerged about their connection. And once the full story became known, much of the community viewed them differently. Not as a suspicious late-life romance. But as 2 people connected by loss, history, and healing. A year later, surrounded by family members old and new, Loretta Brooks married Malik Jefferson. At 60 years old, she discovered something many people assume has an expiration date. Not youth. Not romance. But hope. The kind of hope that survives disappointment. The kind of hope that waits quietly through decades of unanswered questions. And perhaps that's why this story resonated with so many people. Because beneath the mystery, beneath the suspicion, beneath the secrets, was a question many people carry into later chapters of life. Is it ever too late? Too late to heal? Too late to forgive? Too late to begin again? Loretta's answer was simple. No. The chapter may arrive later than expected. The road may be longer than imagined. But sometimes the most meaningful parts of life are waiting beyond the point where most people stop looking. What would you have done if you were Loretta? Would you have taken that journey alone? Would you have trusted Malik? And do you think her children were right to be concerned? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below because we'd love to hear your perspective. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes second chances still exist. And make sure you return tomorrow. Because tomorrow's story involves a decades-old family secret, a missing inheritance, and a discovery that left an entire town speechless. You won't want to miss it.